Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aminah Assilmi and I am from the United States. If you had asked me years ago where my life would take me, I could never have imagined the profound spiritual transformation I was destined to undergo. I was born into a world that seemed on the surface to have all the answers, a world of Sunday hymns and candlelit prayers, of wooden pews and familiar rituals, of a cross above every door and a Bible on every shelf. My family was devout. My father was a deacon at our local Baptist church in the small town where I was raised in the American South. My mother taught Sunday school to children every week without fail. Faith was not merely a part of our lives, it was the very architecture of our identity. To question it was not simply unusual, it was unthinkable. And yet, despite being surrounded by the rituals of faith from the moment I opened my eyes in this world, a deep, pervasive sense of emptiness lingered in my heart for as long as I could remember. Something essential was missing, something I could feel in the silence between prayers, in the hollow echo of words I repeated without truly understanding, in the restless longing that never quite left me, no matter how faithfully I followed every tradition I had been taught. I pushed those feelings down. I buried them beneath busyness, beneath social obligations, beneath the comfortable numbness of routine, because I was afraid, deeply afraid, of what it would mean to truly examine what I believed. I carried that emptiness with me into adulthood. I carried it through university, through marriage, through the ordinary rhythms of a life that looked perfectly fine from the outside. I had a home, I had a career, I had people who loved me, and still in the quiet hours of the night, when the world fell still and there was nothing left to distract me from myself, I felt it, that profound, aching absence at the center of my soul. I had been taught to call it sin. I had been told to pray harder, to believe more, to surrender to a mystery I was not meant to understand. But the mystery never satisfied me, and the emptiness never left. It was in this state of quiet, unspoken searching that I first truly encountered Islam, not as a headline, not as a political argument, not as something foreign and threatening the way it had always been presented to me, but as a living, breathing reality in the heart of another human being, a woman I worked alongside every day. Her name was Fatima. She wore the hijab. In those early days, I confess, I looked at her with a confusion I was not proud of. I had been conditioned to see the hijab as a symbol of oppression, of limitation, of a life lived under constraint, but the more time I spent near Fatima, the more that narrative collapsed under the weight of what I actually witnessed. She moved through the chaos and pressure of our shared workplace with a stillness I had never seen in anyone before, a dignity so complete, so quietly powerful that it seemed to come not from confidence or personality, but from somewhere far deeper, somewhere far beyond this world entirely, an unshakable dignity that no circumstance could disturb. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult day, when tensions in the office had run high and nearly everyone around us had frayed at the edges, I looked at Fatima and asked her, almost reluctantly, almost embarrassed by my own curiosity, "Fatima, how do you stay so calm?" She looked at me with the gentlest smile I had ever seen and said simply and without any hesitation, "I remember that Allah is watching over me." That single sentence stopped me completely. I went home that evening unable to sleep. I kept turning those words over and over in my mind, examining them from every angle. Allah, the One, the Eternal. not a father figure shaped in the image of man, not a son born of a woman in a stable, not a spirit divided and distributed across a theological formula I had never fully understood. Simply the absolute, the singular, the infinite, the one from whom all things come and to whom all things return. Something in those words resonated at a frequency I had never heard before. Something old, something true, something that my soul seemed to recognize even as my mind struggled to catch up. Intrigued by what I had felt in that moment, and more than a little unsettled by it, I decided to educate myself. I went to the library and I picked up a translation of the Holy Quran, fully expecting to put it down within an hour, fully expecting to find something I could comfortably dismiss and return to the life I already knew. Instead, I read through the night. Page after page, the words reached into places inside me that had never been touched before. When I arrived at Surah Al-Ikhlas, say, He is Allah, the One, Allah, the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, nor is there to him any equivalent. Something inside me shattered open in the most beautiful way imaginable. How could the Almighty, the supreme creator of the universe, the one who fashioned the endless skies and the vast ocean depths and the infinite complexity of every living thing, need a son? How could the divine be divided? How could the eternal be born and die? The questions that I had suppressed for 20 years, questions that had made me feel guilty and faithless every time they surfaced, suddenly had answers, clear answers, luminous answers, answers that did not ask me to abandon my reason, but to finally fully use it. I must emphasize this. It was not a gradual leaning. It was not a slow drift in a new direction. It was as if a lightning bolt had struck my soul, illuminating every dark corner of doubt I had ever harboured, flooding every hollow place with a blazing, undeniable light of truth that I could no longer look away from, even if I had wanted to. I sat there in the early hours of the morning, weeping at my kitchen table, overwhelmed by a divine presence, so real and so immediate that it seemed impossible I'd ever lived a single day without it. And I thought to myself, I don't know all the words yet, but I feel like I understand everything. I began to attend an Islamic centre near my home, quietly, carefully, still half afraid of what I was walking toward. The community there received me with a warmth and a patience that overwhelmed me. They answered my questions without judgment. They gave me space to arrive at my own conclusions. And with every visit, every conversation, every page of the Quran, I read and reread. The profound, radiant certainty within me grew stronger until there was simply no room left for doubt. I took my Shahada about 3 weeks after that sleepless night at my kitchen table. It was a quiet afternoon in a small room at the Islamic Centre with a few witnesses and an imam whose kindness I will never forget. The moment those words left my lips, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, I experienced a monumental renewal unlike anything I had ever known. A profound tranquility poured through me from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet, as if every burden I had carried for 30 years, every doubt, every emptiness, every unanswered question had been lifted by hands I could not see but could absolutely feel. I wept. I wept for a very long time, and I felt for the first time in my life that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I love Islam. Islam is absolutely my life. There is nothing in the world as important to me as Islam, and there is nothing in the world that I am not willing to give up for the sake of Allah, for Islam, and for the Muslims. That is a fact. It is an unquestionable fact, because Islam is everything to me, because I know the power of Islam. I know the power of Allah. I understand Allah's love. I understand His wisdom. I understand His mercy. I understand His justice. And I know there is nothing that is better. I wished to share this with everyone, and the first thing I had to learn was how to present Islam and how to live Islam. When I told my family, I did not expect celebration. I did not expect joy, but I was not prepared, not even close to prepared, for what actually came. When I sat down with my parents and told them what I had done, my father's face changed in a way I had never seen before. He stood up slowly from the table, looked at me with eyes I no longer recognized, and told me to leave his house. My mother buried her face in her hands and wept, telling me between sobs that I had been deceived, that the devil had reached me and taken me away from God. My brothers, men I had grown up beside, men I had laughed and argued and shared a childhood with, told me that I had brought shame upon the family name. And then came the words that cut the deepest, words I'd never imagined I would hear spoken to me by my own flesh and blood, words that no child, no matter how old, is ever truly prepared to receive. You are no longer our daughter. The reaction of my family was so severe, so absolute, so complete. There were moments in those early days when I genuinely feared for my own safety. There were nights I slept with the lights on, replaying conversations in my mind, wondering how love, the love of parents, the love of a family, could transform so suddenly into something so cold and so distant. I remember walking out of my father's house that evening carrying only a small bag, stepping out into the cool night air, looking up at a sky full of stars, and instead of feeling broken, instead of feeling abandoned, I felt strangely and powerfully held, as if the one who had created every one of those stars was reaching down through the darkness and reminding me in the language of the universe, you are never alone when you are with me. But while those early months provided the hardest trials of my life, the realization that slowly dawned on me was not one of bitterness. It was one of immense gratitude. Because Islam had given me something that no family's approval, no social acceptance, no worldly comfort could ever replace. It had given me the absolute, the eternal, a connection to the Creator of all things that could not be severed by any human hand. I did not resent my family. I prayed for them. I still pray for them to this day, every single day, without exception, because I know that the blazing, undeniable light of truth that had found me, that same light could find anyone, even those who had turned away from it, even those who had once used their words to try and extinguish it. Years have passed since that night. Many years. 24 years have passed since I embraced Islam, and in every single one of those years, my unwavering dedication to this faith has only deepened. I have built a new life, rooted in faith, in knowledge, in service, in the extraordinary warmth of an ummah that opened its arms to me when my own family had closed its doors. I have travelled. I have spoken. I have met thousands of people whose lives have been touched by this faith, and in every face I have seen the same miracle of the soul that I experienced at that kitchen table in the early hours of a morning that changed everything. My journey was long and sometimes painful, but every moment of doubt was worth it to finally arrive at the truth of Islam. To anyone who is searching, to anyone who carries that same emptiness I once carried, that restless longing for something more real, more eternal, more true than anything this world has offered you, keep your heart open, listen to the Quran, and never ignore the truth when it stands clearly before you.